Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Lush Foliage. In today's video, I wanted to talk about this absolutely stunning, beautiful plant called as the Colocasia Mojito. Now, this was one of my wishlist plants since 2020, but in those days, this plant was extremely expensive and I thought it isn't worth to buy at that point of time. And after 2020, this plant kind of disappeared. I mean, it was available, but it was not being sold that often. But now in 2024, the plant is back again. But the good news is that the plant was at a very, very affordable price. So I had to purchase this plant. But I was a little bit skeptical about the type of soil mix. Remember in my last video, the white lava, the same thing happened with this one as well. I was not very sure what soil mix should I provide them. I did a lot of research for almost 3 to 4 weeks, and that's when I thought I will experiment a little bit, because ideally either people were growing it in a regular potting mix or some people were growing it semi-submerged in water. I couldn't do both of it because the first option, my environment is very dry. There will be a lot of issue with watering. The second option, I don't have anything wherein I can kind of semi-submerge the plant in water. I don't have that kind of space. So I thought I will experiment with this option wherein I take the pot and keep it in a tray with water. And this experiment happened to work out really well, and I'm very, very happy. Now in my last video, I made a small mistake by saying that the seller had cut the stems. Of course, the seller did cut the leaves, but I wanted to correct myself. Colocasias, alocasias do not have a stem. This is basically a petiole, just like caladiums. The petiole is connected to the leaf. So there is a comb beneath, which is basically an enlarged stem that tends to store the water and nutrients during the dormancy of the plant. And once the plant starts to come out from dormancy, that's when they start to put out the leaves. The petiole starts to grow from the comb, and then you have the leaves that start to come out. So what I did is I went with this option, and it tends to work out really well. So this tray beneath is filled with water. It takes around 4 to 5 days for it to completely get exhausted. And then what I do is I have some rainwater. I take the rainwater and I pour it in the pot, and then this excess water starts to trickle down and it gets collected in that tray beneath, and that tray is always replenished with water, and that's how it has been doing quite well. So I solved that problem and I got in between solution to it, and it has been working out really well. Now this plant has been kept in indirect bright light. It gets around 1 hour or maybe 2 hours of early morning mild sunlight, but after that there is a lot of indirect bright light with a good amount of intensity. If you're going to keep this plant in shade, then you can see this beautiful dark variegation. The spots that you see will start to fade off and the plant is going to look more green. Now the reason why we are purchasing this plant is because of that beautiful coloration on them, those dark splashes on them. That's what make this plant very unique. So we want to maintain that. So offer a good amount of indirect bright light which has a good amount of intensity, and the plant will show up these colors. Talking about watering, as I said, they love a consistent moisture in the soil. You cannot afford to keep the soil dry, otherwise the leaves will start having issues. So ensure that there is consistent moisture in the soil. As I said, these plants tend to grow in a swampy area, so you have to replicate the same environment. This was the first leaf that came up, and I was like, where is the color on it? And then this was the second leaf that came up, and the third leaf has this beautiful coloration on it. And of course, as and when the plant starts to grow, there is going to be more of this coloration on the leaves. Looks absolutely stunning. I would say these are fairly easy, especially if you're living in a tropical environment. When I say tropical environment, is basically something that is very warm and humid. The temperatures don't drop too low. At the same time, the temperatures don't rise too high. The moment the temperatures rise a bit high, it starts to rain in a tropical environment. So that is why a lot of these plants love, because the temperature range is very comfortable for them. It's not too cold nor it's too hot, and hence a lot of these plants tend to thrive in a warm and humid environment. So my environment is a kind of tropical environment, so it's quite easy for me to grow a lot of my plants because the temperature is quite comfortable for them, and there is always a good amount of growth. As you can see, all the extra water has drained out and it has got collected in that tray. That's the kind of setup I've given them. Of course, the soil has to be loose, porous and well draining. Even if you are growing it separately without water, you have to ensure that the soil is loose, porous, well draining. This mix is basically a mix of garden soil and sand. I would say around 60-40 or 50-50, anything, because the moment you add sand, the soil becomes well draining. So it's a very well draining soil mix, and this setup kind of matches to my environment because my environment is very dry. For people who are from a very high humid environment, of course they don't have to go with this setup, it won't be much of an issue. But for me, because I'm from a very dry environment, this setup has been working out really well. As I said, within 4 days the tray tends to get completely dried out because all of that water is being pulled out into the soil. The soil also tends to dry fast, so there is a consistent moisture in the soil, and that is what this plant loves. I was definitely quite worried about this initially because I thought probably the corm might happen to get rotted because of excess moisture, but no, it is working out really well. But again, this is something that you have to check according to your environment and then go for it. If you are from a very high humid environment, you do not need to go with this setup, or if you're growing them in water, of course you'll have to submerge the pot completely till you're into the water, and then that's how the plant will grow. There are different methods of how people tend to grow, whichever you are comfortable with. I'm very happy with this setup, so I think I'm going to, next time when I'm going to get more of these colocasias, I'm definitely going to go with this setup. It is working out really well. Now this is a 7-inch pot. That is more than enough for these plants because they do not have a lot of roots. They have the corm and a little bit of roots beneath that, and that's about it. As and when it starts to grow, they start to put out small corms in the sides, and that's how you can propagate these. Now you cannot do a stem cutting because these are not stems, these are petioles. If you're going to cut this and put it into the water, nothing is going to happen. Maybe after a day or so, the leaf will start to dry out, and this thing is going to turn dark in color. You can only do it through those corms that are going to come out. Probably I'll put up an image on the screen, you'll get a fair idea. That's how it looks like. So that is what you can separate it from the large corm, and then you can replant it into another pot, and that's how the journey continues of this plant. Another thing that I wanted to mention is the temperature. They will do well in a temperature range between 18 degrees Celsius anywhere up to 35, 36. If it is a mature plant, it can even handle higher temperature. These are not frost hardy. The moment the temperature gets cold, they will start to drop the leaves. But as I said, the storage is beneath the soil. That tends to stay inside the soil. So if you are from a place wherein you experience snowfall, of course you'll have to take out the corm from the soil. Otherwise, due to frost, it will get rotted. But for me, it's not much of an issue. Tropical environment, temperatures don't drop below 19 degrees Celsius, so I don't have any issues of taking out the corm. At times they might drop off all the leaves, but it's still present under the soil. I do not need to take out because I do not experience frost or snowfall in my city. So that's about it, guys. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep planting.